would never be a factor. Now I'm laughing at Benny Hanna's with benefactors. My soul for an artist love with them giant raptors. My chef cooking that steak and lobster on giant platters.
What up, Internet? Welcome to another episode of a show that I've decided to call Deliberate Marketing. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Drew Susi. I'm the proprietor of a digital marketing agency here in the greater New England area called DS Media. Over the last 5 years, myself and my team have assisted way more than 100 different businesses in marketing and advertising their services and brand development. We have net way more than 50 million organic views. At the moment, our current clients on retainer net somewhere in the ballpark of 3 to 5 million organic views per month. We have generated more than 10,000 pieces of content at this point for everything from influencers and e-com to brick and mortar and blue collar. And that is the last I'm going to say about why the fuck you should be listening to this show, because let's be real, we are like 4 episodes in at this point. If you don't get it by now, you won't get it. Either you trust me or you don't. Let's move on to today's topic. We're going to be talking about the psychology of attention today, mostly because I touched on it just a little bit at the end of a prior episode here, and it is the foundation for everything associated with marketing, branding, and advertising. We are in the game of attention. Attention has to do with psychology. And so what I want to go over today is some core attention triggers that you can think about using in some of your content, some of your media in order to promote your business. These are things that are hardwired into our brain, things that every single person experiences in some capacity, and they're basically, I don't know if leverage is quite the right word, because that sounds kind of funky, but it is leverage that you can use to get people to pay attention to the things that you want them to pay attention to. And now, I would like to state for the record that I really hope that you use this responsibly. There are a whole bunch of people in this fucking field, as I have mentioned previously, that use a whole bunch of things like this for very shitty purposes. I do not want to be associated with that shit. So if you are running a business, if you are building a rival marketing agency and just taking my fucking playbook from this show, I'm okay with that as long as you promise not to use this shit for nefarious purposes. Do right by your audience. That's my number one thing. These attention triggers that we're going to talk about, they are hardwired like into our brains. This is stuff that is 100% reliable, has been used for the last 75, 80 years in modern marketing. And honestly, longer than that. The birth of advertising, I believe, was in the mid-late 1800s, actually by, I think it was Darwin's, it was either his dad or his grandfather. One of those guys is the father of modern advertising, which is a story we can tell another time. But you know what? Let's just dive right into the list. I want to keep these episodes as actionable as possible, so the less time I spend fucking riffing on stories and whatnot, unless that's what you guys want to hear, which if so, let me know in the comments. Let's just get into the stuff that I know you can definitely use for your business or your brand. As I said, we're going to talk about the core attention triggers. We're going to talk about the things that we can definitely use in content, in marketing, in media, in copy, in advertising, in anything in order to get people to pay attention for one reason or another. Now, the number one biggest one that I think everybody can relate to is novelty. And novelty refers to surprise and pattern breaks, not just new things. So one of my favorite attention triggers is pattern breaks. It's actually something that I use or previously used to great effect to build my Instagram account back when I was looking for proof of concept around short form content. If you scroll back a couple years on my Instagram page, you'll notice that all of my talking head videos have no cuts in them. None at all. And that was during the renaissance of what we know as retention editing, which is the cuts every couple seconds, kind of like a reality. No, it is literally like a reality show, like children's shows. They cut, change angles all the time. They have text effects and this, that, and the other bouncing across the screen, all that kind of shit. You'll notice that my content has none of that. That's a pattern break. It's novelty. It's something unexpected. If somebody sees a talking head piece of content on Instagram, or if they did 2 years ago, and it didn't bounce around in front of them, they thought, what the fuck? What's going on here? That's something new. This can be leveraged in a whole bunch of different ways. Novelty, surprises, pattern breaks. A great example of that is some of the blue collar clientele that we work with. One of our favorite things to do with them, one of their favorite things to do, honestly, is to throw in some stuff that's like very aggressively feminine. They find that quite funny. Great example of that is, we will be working with companies that, they are as blue collar gets. And we'll throw in things like a Katy Perry soundtrack or, Nicki Minaj or something like that. Something that just does not quite match the theme you would expect from seeing a bunch of, sweaty dudes lifting a bunch of stuff, right? That's a pattern interrupt. That's something unexpected. That's a great way to grab somebody's attention because our brains are wired to spot things that don't fit. It's actually, it goes back to quite literally like basically basic evolution. And as we were, thousands and thousands of years ago as foragers, the way that we stayed away from predators was noticing when something wasn't quite right, when something wasn't the same. Whether that was sound, as in all of a sudden all of the animals around us stopped making noise, or a figure in the woods somewhere far away, like something that just doesn't quite look like a piece of vegetation, they stop and they get our attention because it's entirely possible that that was a threat. That's where that comes from. So novelty is a great one. Novelty is a really easy one as well. That's why, as much as I don't like them, posts like "Congratulations to," "We are pleased to announce," "New up and coming," this, that, and the other kind of posts, they play on novelty. They are used a lot by small businesses as they have announcements for this, that, and the other. It's why teasers and grand openings for a lot of places do better than they probably should otherwise, given the substance of the content. The content itself. But wrapping that one up, novelty, great one to lean on. If you've got something new, if you've got a way that you can surprise somebody with something, if you've got a way that you can break an existing pattern, another prime example of that, using myself, my agency as an example, people don't expect me to be as well-spoken as I am. You may notice that my attire is particularly bro-ish. I am a 350-pound bearded dude that wears a whole lot of snapbacks and flat brim caps. I can understand how somebody would not expect me to quote literature. It's a great pattern interrupt. It keeps people's attention. Moving on to number 2, fear and loss aversion. This one this one's probably the most popular I think this one's probably the most popular used by modern advertisers in terms of things that they know people will pay attention to and ways to drive sales through advertisements. Fear and loss aversion, people are afraid to lose something more than they're afraid to gain something. That's actually, to make my point, Daniel Kahneman, any of the books by him, one of my personal favorites is Thinking Fast and Slow, which talks about basically how we make decisions and then we rationalize them afterward. We have 2 different forms of thinking in our brain. Daniel Kahneman actually writes about this. I forget which book it is, but one of his books actually covers loss aversion, and how people are very, very, very inclined to hold on to what they have rather than attempt to gain something new. It's the devil you know versus devil you don't kind of thing. Basically what that means is don't miss this definitely outperforms come get this. So limited time offers, limited time discounts, limited run items, that have a specific expiration date. If you run a meal prep company, and you know that you can produce X number of meals per week, a great way to drive sales behind that is to say, hey, I only have the capacity to make X number left. Put your order in now before I run out of time. That's loss aversion. That's fear and loss aversion. Another great example, if you're in the B2B space, is, hey, your competitors are already doing this kind of stuff. Why aren't you? How are you behind the eight ball? I personally do not love relying on this one. It is a very, very effective form of marketing and advertising for a reason. But fear and loss aversion is a fine line to tread. There is a point where you are abusing it. For instance, I only have X number of spots left in my bullshit social media course that I am selling for $999. Those 2 spots left that I advertised sold out, and all of a sudden there are 2 more open spots. I hate that shit. I genuinely fucking hate that shit. That kind of stuff I really try to stay away from. However, there is no doubt in my mind that it is very effective. And if you have an appropriate ethical way to use it, you should. Number 3, status and aspiration. This is pretty self-explanatory, right? It's why all the fucking douchebags that are selling fake products, they stand in front of Lamborghinis and shit and put fake money on beds and whatnot. Humans, we are a hierarchical. I think it's hierarchical. Forgive me if I'm wrong. We are a species that looks for indicators of hierarchy. We look for indicators of the pecking order, so to speak. So much so that an easy way to advertise to people is to sell them status. You can a great example is all of the designer names across all sorts of ridiculous stuff. The high volume shit that brands like that sell, like let's say Gucci, Versace, whatever, all of the products that they sell with names on it are their high volume products because what they're selling is the association, the status, right? The true high ticket items from those brands don't have names on them. They barely have logos on them most of the time. They're usually small little marks on the inside tags and things like that. The true quality stuff that people that have already attained a level of let's say success with is not branded as such. They're not branded in the same way. The ones that have the names across them, they are selling the status associated with them, right? Status and aspiration. These are great for educational materials. Anything goal-oriented. Hey, do you want to win? Right? That's a big one that I use personally. Aspiration. My agency, I try to sell people on the idea that like, hey, you're playing a game right now. You're playing a very competitive game. You should be trying to win. And winning requires a team. So to build the best team, hey, I'm somebody that you should consider having on your team. My team is somebody that you should be employing the services of in order for you to get where you want to go. Because nobody's in the game of business to just maintain from a given level, right? There is a level of success that just about every business owner hopes to achieve. And that ranges from my family doesn't have to worry about anything to absolute fuck you money, right? But all of those are aspirational. All of those are wins, right? All of those are aimed upward. That is a great way to sell to people. If you can sell them the idea of something better down the road. Aspirations, status, health and fitness is another great one. What do people aspire to? They aspire to lose weight. They aspire to look better. They aspire to be stronger. They aspire to be whatever it happens to be. If you can paint that picture for them, sell them that idea, show them the possibilities of what it's like working with you, that's a great way to keep people's attention. Paint them the picture of what life would be like if they used your product or service. That's aspiration, status and aspiration. Number 4, I think this is everybody's favorite, humor. And I don't think I need to explain this one very much. Humor keeps attention, right? Think about it. One of the best lessons I learned early on in my life, because I used to be a very overweight kid, and then I got skinny, and then I got fat again. But that's a different story. One of the best lessons I learned early in my life was that if you were a larger individual and you were not blessed with the looks of Ryan Gosling or whatever the fuck, you could still make it. You could still get people to pay attention to you by being funny, by having a personality, right? Humor is pretty self-explanatory. And On top of that, laughter disarms skepticism. That's something that a lot of people overlook. It's why stand-up comedy is so popular nowadays. The laughter that comes from stand-up comedians allows them to talk about hot-button topics that otherwise would not be able to be discussed in the same capacity that they are by these individuals. They are able to open up an area of conversation that is otherwise sort of off limits to us, because we do not have the ability to walk into a conversation about such an emotionally driven topic without being swayed one way or the other, or on defense immediately about whether this person agrees with me or not and how much I'm going to get yelled at for my particular views. Stand-up comedians circumvent that because, as I said, laughter disarms skepticism. Unexpected juxtapositions, that's another great way to go about it. This does go into the novelty, the surprise, the pattern break one. But the unexpected is a great way to make people laugh. This goes into the example that we gave about, adding very feminine elements to very burly blue collar marketing content. Another example is, let's take a field that people expect to be incredibly dry, accounting, right? If you're a funny accountant, do you know how far you can go with that? Imagine making spreadsheets funny. There's actually a trend with that stuff right now going on online. There's a whole bunch of corporate influencers, basically. They have very boring, mundane jobs that I do not envy one bit. And they're popular, one, because they're relatable, but two, because they're making the everyday funny. They're making it engaging. They're making it interesting by adding some humor to the mix, right? They're offering relatable stories that everybody kind of gets a chuckle out of. That stuff is succeeding because humor keeps people's attention. I'm all done beating that dead horse. That one was, as I said, pretty self-explanatory. Number 5, another one. And this one actually does have some context and nuance that we need to discuss a little bit, but it's obvious. Sex and desire. It's a biological trigger, but it's not always literal sex. Now, everybody, I guarantee, listening to that immediately just thought of, oh, fuck, the Sydney Sweeney ad, right? Sex appeal. That's what they use there. And a whole bunch of controversy around the genes, whatnot, yada, yada, yada. But the sex appeal bit goes into the hierarchy bit that we were talking about as well. Everybody wants to be desirable to the opposite, or in some cases, the same sex, right? Sex and desire has to do with all sorts of different wants, right? I mean, it can be beauty, it can be style, it can be, food, it can be luxury items, it can be all sorts of things. Food is honestly a great example. Like, there's nothing, I mean, unless you ask some weird ass chefs, they might have a different answer than me, but there's nothing inherently sexual about food, right? But everybody looks at a good meal posted by a local restaurant or something like that, and they go, fuck, that looks great, right? And it elicits a similar reaction to, I don't know, spotting an individual we might find particularly attractive, right? It fires similar neurons in the brain. Sex and desire, right? If you post something that somebody goes, damn, I really, really want that. Like, that looks awesome. If you're a bakery, if you're a candy shop, if you're a pizza shop, in my case, stay away from me. Stay away from me if you're a pizza shop. I don't have that level of self-control. But any kind of desire, right? And there are other ways that you can communicate that as well. You can actually style content to elicit a certain level of desire by people, right? ASMR content is a great example of this. There's something about the tactile aspect of that content that makes it attractive to us. It makes it desirable to watch, to listen to, et cetera, et cetera. So if you have a consumer goods product of some kind, like focusing on the fabric of your item, the quality of material or something like that, that might be a way to elicit desire in some capacity, because people will watch that and go, ooh, I want to touch that. I want to feel what that feels like, right? Number 6, curiosity and mystery. This one's fun. The brain hates open loops. I mentioned it previously with Kahneman there, how we have two parts of our brain, one part that makes decisions and another part that rationalizes everything. We look for stories in everything. We look for neat, clean bows that we can tie off on everything under the sun, right? And so if you can hold somebody in suspense pending a given answer, you've got them forever. You've got them as long as you can keep them interested in that general story arc, right? There is a finite limit to that, which I think a lot of TikTok creators several years ago found out when they started posting stories that they never, ever, ever gave the resolution to. But, you know, this one plays a lot into hooks in general. You know, here's why this, that, and the other. And then the influencer that posted that launches into this giant backstory. Or, those cooking pages that everybody used to hate, right? That still exist. The SEO driven ones that you would click on the page looking for a base recipe, to make fucking gabagool, this and that. And the next thing you know, you're reading somebody's life story about how they were found in a dumpster at 3 years old, and they decided that their life goal was to cook so well that they never had to live in a dumpster again or whatever. That is an example of curiosity and mystery, because they just keep you sitting there waiting for the fucking the payoff, right? You're looking for the recipe that is coming, but they get in their whole story beforehand because you're just sitting there waiting for the payoff. Withholding information does keep people engaged. This is another one that, like, please use ethical judgment around. Like, be smart about this shit. You can really, really easily frustrate people with this. And people, I think the vast majority of people are a lot smarter than most people give them credit for. But I also think that people are easily influenced into paying attention to a lot of stuff that does not deserve their attention due to things like this. A great example is people that start books or movies that feel like they have to finish them if they don't like them. If I start a movie I don't like, if I start a book I don't like I get halfway through and I'm like, fuck this. I put it down. No, thank you. I don't think a lot of people have that level of restraint or control. Which is where marketing and advertising plays a big role, right? If you can convince somebody to start something, most of the time you've got them on the hook for the whole thing, even if it isn't good, which is a whole nother topic that we'll get into another time. If your product sucks, your product sucks. I don't care how much marketing and advertising you put behind it. But wrapping that one up, curiosity and mystery. Keep people on the hook. Withhold information from them. You've got them for a little while. That is a way to keep attention. Number 7, conflict and drama. This is self-explanatory. This is why reality shows exist. This is why soap operas exist. This is something used a lot because 80% of the consumer base in America is female. This is a very, very common one used. Great example. I used to work bar security a lot. If a fight happens outside, everybody's paying attention, right? Because it's just, I don't know. It's controversy, right? It grabs attention. A great example of this that I am using in my current marketing and branding endeavors. I have no problem calling out social media managers that actually absolutely suck, right? I have no problem calling out marketers and other professionals in my field that absolutely should not be given the time of day. That is a great example of using controversy and conflict and drama to my advantage. As much as I would love to say that it is 100% about you guys, that is how I'm keeping you on the hook. I'm offering you a little bit of drama in the process, right? Because you're like, ooh, what did he say about so-and-so? It doesn't even matter if you know him or not, right? I bet a few of the names I mentioned a couple episodes ago, you don't fucking know them. You don't care. You don't care at all. You just care that I'm picking fights. That is conflict and drama. And that can be low-key, too. That can be very low-key. It doesn't have to be physical. It doesn't have to be very aggressive. It can just be like, I'm tired of this industry trend. Hot take. Here's why I don't like this thing that everybody likes. Ooh, that's conflict and drama right there. And number 8, tribal belonging, identity, us versus them, Ford versus Chevy. You can name this 100 different ways, but this is pretty self-explanatory, right? Humans in general, our brains are actually wired this way, believe it or not. We are only capable of keeping track of about 150 people, give or take, in our brains. Reliably, we are only able to keep track of about 150 people. That's because a long ass fucking time ago, when we were in tribes and shit like that, that was about as large as we could get before there was infighting and everything kind of fell apart. And they ended up, conquered and decimated by another rival tribe that actually had their shit together. 150 people. And so because of that, we look for communities. We look for that level of tribal belonging because that's how we survived for a long, long time. We are social creatures. We look for more of the same, right? Personally, one of the things that stresses me out a lot is I have a very hard time relating to a lot of people. I am an upper Northeast New England, rough around the edges business owner, and therefore, I'm a little too crass for the intellectuals, and I'm a little too intellectual for the potatoes, and so I kind of fall in this weird little thing in the middle here. That I have a hard time finding communities that I belong to, so to speak. And so an easy way to market to me is to show me something that I really, really relate to, and then show me a bunch of people that are interested in the same stuff that I am. I'm very interested in that because I personally have a hard time making friends outside of things like that. Now, this stuff gets weaponized aggressively, and I think modern politics is the best example of that. I don't want to go into politics in any significant capacity, but it is a great example of marketing and advertising using the weaponization of tribal belonging, right? I believe it's Stephen Covey wrote a book once upon a time called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I don't remember the exact book, to be honest, but I do remember reading once upon a time about the concept of independence. And basically what he said was that there were several levels of independence. There was codependence, there was independence, and then there was something called counterdependence. Now, all of us want to be independent to some capacity, right? We want to be able to stand on our own. We want to not be beholden to others. We want to be autonomous. We want to be able to make our own decisions. Now, the step below that is codependence, right? You cannot exist without another thing supporting you in some capacity, which is not the end of the world, but it is kind of an unfortunate way to live sometimes. For instance, I am dependent on my CPAP. I have very aggressive sleep apnea. I cannot sleep without a CPAP. I've had that for a decade now. So if I travel anywhere, I have to bring that little fucking air compressor with me, right? That's a version of codependence. Now, way below that, that's my own words, not the author's, but way below that is counterdependence. Counterdependence is the existence of something explicitly because it stands against another thing. Does that not sound like modern politics to you? That's why I stay away from modern politics. I'm so tired of the argument for something being, I am against this rather than I am for this. And that actually goes into what? Fear and loss aversion, right? It's funny how all of this stuff coincides. It all works together. All of it works together. All of these overlap in varying capacities. But modern politics is based on counterdependence. It's based on tribal belonging. It's saying, fuck those guys, we're over here. And then you get over here and you go, oh yeah, I don't quite agree with everything over here. And they go, well, you gotta, otherwise where are you going to go, right? Where are you going to go? Because it's all of them over there. That's terrible, right? You don't want to be with them. You want to be with us. That's tribal belonging, weaponized. It's a terrible example of it in terms of the repercussions of it, but it is an example of it nonetheless. This is used by a lot of business coaches. It's used by a lot of quote-unquote mentors. It's used by a lot of people like that, where it's like, okay, you buy access to, this course or whatever, and you get exclusive access to this inner circle club of yada, 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 yada. That's another example of tribal belonging. It's also a way to keep people on the hook, right? You say, oh, well, only my inside people get to see this stuff. Well, then they're going to pay attention and be like, okay, well, how do I get on the inside, right? Tribal reinforcement in advertising is it's another great way to weaponize this, basically. And so what you can do here is, let's say, I use this example a lot, but let's say you're a gym, and you're a specialized gym in some capacity. You have very specialized equipment. You're a little higher caliber, something like that. A great example of tribal reinforcement for you to cater to your community would be to poke fun at the quote-unquote normie gyms in your area, right? You can focus on the things that they do that you do not, which then reinforces the belonging of the people that have subscribed or signed up for your business. That's a great example of tribal belonging and reinforcement. These are all tools, as I said, that you can use to keep people's attention. The biggest thing that I ask of you is that you use these ethically. Pay attention to how people pay attention. And pay attention to whether what you're putting in front of these fucking people is actually worth paying attention to. Audit what you're putting in front of them. I think that's only fair. I think that's how the world becomes a better place, is if we all start paying attention to what we're forcing other people to pay attention to, if we're in a position to make them pay attention to something. So, to recap that list, we have novelty, which is surprise, pattern breaks. We have fear and loss aversion, which is people want don't miss this, not get this. We have status and aspiration, which is if you want to become this, you should do this. We have humor, which is self-explanatory. I don't need to go into that one, right? Knock, knock, who's there? You know what? Okay, speaking of humor, this is a small aside, and I saw this a little while ago, but it actually did kind of blow my mind. Why did the chicken cross the road to get to the other side? That's a suicide joke. I completely missed that. I am 31 years old, and I never picked up on that until somebody fucking pointed it out to me. That's hilarious. Anyway, humor. Next one. We have sex and desire. Make people want things. And that doesn't just mean straight up sex appeal. That means desire. Show them something that they go, ooh, I want that. Excuse me. Next up, we have curiosity and mystery. Withhold information from people. Make them jump to conclusions. Make assumptions. You will keep their attention. We have conflict and drama. Everybody loves a fight. Everybody loves an argument. Until they're a part of one, right? As long as it's somebody else. We don't care. And last but not least, we have tribal belonging. Make people feel like they're a part of something. Reinforce the idea that they are part of something exclusive. They will pay attention to it explicitly because they feel like they are not like everyone else. All right, that's all I got for this episode here. Hopefully these principles here, these attention triggers that we were talking about, they'll make you think about content in a little bit of a different way. I should have led the episode with paying attention to this kind of stuff will slowly ruin the internet for you, because you will start looking at everything through this lens. You will start looking at everything as, okay, why is this keeping my attention? Why am I paying attention to it? Not the information within the piece of content you're looking at. You'll say, what did they throw in front of me that made me go, ooh, I got to pay attention to this? It's big with hooks. Hooks are very, very important, and that goes into structuring content, which we'll cover another time. But that's all I got for this episode. If you guys enjoyed it, if you found value here, please do me a favor, drop me a follow at probably Drew Susi on just about everywhere on the internet. If I can be found on a platform, I can be found at that moniker. Like and comment and subscribe to this show if it is your jam. I would love to make more of those, but more of these, but I'm only going to make more of these if these are of significant value to people. Otherwise, I'm going to go back to my day job and I'm going to do this stuff for the people that pay me. Anyway, you guys have a great evening.